Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Gregory, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs with the Australian Jewish Association. As we go to air, Israel is experiencing a wave of Islamic terrorism, and our thoughts are with the people of Israel. We hope for a speedy victory, and we know that, as always, we'll overcome this evil too. But we've also been watching horrific images over the last few weeks out of Ukraine, while our thoughts are with the innocent people and civilians over there. But one aspect of this war that's received a lot of attention is the way in which Israel has geared itself up to receive tens of thousands of refugees. We've even seen the number of 100,000 being quoted. In a way, that's Israel fulfilling one of its purposes as the homeland for all Jewish people. But today we're going to look at a topic that is sometimes taboo, and there are a lot of people that would rather ignore this issue in the hope that it would go away rather than talk about it. This is the issue of the other side of immigration to Israel from the former Soviet Union. My guest today has strong views on the topic, so I'd like to introduce Rabbi Steven Pruzansky. Rabbi Pruzansky is a rabbi, author, and previously a lawyer. He served for 35 years as a rabbi, including 25 years at Congregation Bnai Yeshurun, which is one of the largest Orthodox congregations in the United States and has several thousand members. He made Aliyah to Israel in 2020, and that's where he joins us from. So thank you for joining us today, Rabbi.
Good day. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I'll just start with our first question. Can you give us an idea about the scale of the immigration we're talking about? How many people have come to Israel from the former Soviet Union since its collapse?
The estimates are anywhere from 800,000 people to 1 million people. And of those, the estimates are that between 300,000 and 400,000 are not halachic Jews, meaning they don't descend from a Jewish mother, or for that matter, not from a Jewish grandmother either. As the law of return was amended in 1970, it included as eligible for Israeli citizenship, a person who had a sole Jewish grandfather, or even the spouse of a person who had a sole Jewish grandfather. That encompasses a large number of people that we would not consider Jews, even if they want to live in Israel. So I mentioned in the article I wrote in Sheva a few weeks ago, that just as an example, Andrzej Duda is the president of Poland, so his wife would be eligible for citizenship on the law of return because her grandfather, she had one Jewish grandfather. And it's not only her and her child and her husband, should they want to leave Poland and come to Israel, but it's also her parents who would be able to come, and extended family as well on that basis. Because of the problem of intermarriage that has really racked the Jewish world in the last century, there are a lot of people who are of Jewish origin but don't identify and yet would be eligible as citizens in the Jewish state. I mean, one name off the top of my head, because he appears in the media so frequently, is former Secretary of State John Kerry, whose father was Jewish, original name was Cohn, and his father converted, married a non-Jew, and John is their son, but he'd be eligible. Not only would he be eligible, but his children would be eligible as well. So if we're trying to populate a Jewish state and make that Jewish state accessible to Jews and serve as the homeland of the Jewish people, and as the fulfillment of the prophetic vision that on which basis the Jewish state was established, then I think we have to narrow the criteria and not include just grandchildren of Jews, because that is too much of a biological proposition. We want people who have an affinity for the Jewish people, and not people who simply by coincidence have a Jewish grandparent. Now, in the Ukraine situation today, we have to distinguish as well between those coming in temporarily as refugees, and I think the estimates now around 10,000 to 12,000 people have come simply as refugees, not claiming any Jewish status as well. And of course, like every civilized society, not that many in the world, but like every civilized society, we should try to help refugees flee the harm. I think the understanding is that they'll return to their homeland once the hostilities there have stopped. In addition to that, there are roughly 4,000 to 5,000 Ukrainians have come to Israel as well, pursuant to the law of return. Some of them obviously are Jewish, practicing Jews. Some are children of Jewish mothers, which of course make them Jews according to Allah as well. But the estimates are anywhere from 70% to 90% of the Ukrainians coming in now under the law of return fall into that same category of people who have but one Jewish ancestor and therefore are neither practicing Judaism necessarily or want to live Jewish lives in the Jewish state. And over time, that's going to dilute the Jewish character of the state. And to an extent, that's happened as well already.
Wow, so that leads me on to my next question. So 70 to 90%, wow, that's a lot. And what are some of the consequences of this? I know in the past we've seen actual neo-Nazi gangs springing up in Israel, attacking Jews and attacking synagogues from people who may have had, a Jewish grandparent or not really much connection. But what sort of consequences are you seeing now?
Well, one of the consequences going back already almost 40 years to the original, or 30 years rather, to the original mass Aliyah from the former Soviet Union is the plethora of Russian Orthodox churches that have arisen in Israel, in Rishon LeZion, in Bat Yam, in Ashdod, in Ashkelon, meaning that these people came under the law of return as Jews nominally, but really just become Israeli citizens, and they continued practicing their faith. I think one of the immediate consequences that we're dealing with now in Israel is what's called here the conversion crisis. Jews never have problems, we only have crises. So in the conversion crisis, there's an attempt being made now to amend there's no other way to say it, to amend the halacha, amend Jewish law in order to accommodate and declare as Jews, convert thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of halachic non-Jews who do not want to practice Judaism. They don't want to observe the mitzvot of the Torah, but simply as a sort of bulwark against intermarriage. There is an increasing number of intermarriages in Israel over the last decade or so, and the feeling is if somehow you wave the magic wand of conversion over them, then they're Jews, and poof, you've solved the intermarriage problem. Never really solved the assimilation problem, but that one problem is solved. The problem is you can't solve that problem in that way and at the same time maintain the integrity of the Torah. To be a Jew has to mean something more than having a biological Jewish identity. It has to mean that we subscribe to the tenets, to the values, to the narrative of the Jewish people. And in this, we find this dichotomy that exists in the Torah that nonetheless converged in all Jews. That is the Judaism as representative of a religio nation, that we're not just a religion with a faith, we're also a nation, a nationality. Something like that is rare in the world if it exists at all anywhere else. We are both a nation and a religion. To be a Jew means to be part of the Jewish nation and part of the Jewish religion. And the question is what to do with those who want to be part of the Jewish nation and not be part of the Jewish religion. And do we really promote any real value in Judaism by just extending to them this Jewish identity without including the religious component to it?
So people are arriving who aren't Jewish and then are wanting to change the nature of the state and make it less Jewish and change the laws and calling for those type of changes?
It happens both actively and subtly because there's always been pressure since the second decade of the state's existence to secularize the state. Take issues that have now become more prominent, public transportation on Shabbat. So the secular population had accommodated themselves to it. They realized that going back to Ben-Gurion's time, the state should have a public Jewish character to it. But now with an influx in the hundreds of thousands of halachic non-Jews, they're questioning, why would the state not allow them to have a bus service or train service on Shabbat when they don't observe the Shabbat? Why must they be penalized? So in terms of weakening the public observance of Shabbat, in terms of diluting kashrut in public institutions or organs, in terms even of the plethora of sale of pork in the land of Israel, which is a staple in the diets of people from the former Soviet Union and now coming to Israel. They're things that really are indications of what a Jewish state is supposed to profess, that it is being diluted. I mean, I hasten to add, I don't want to paint too bleak a picture. The fact is, Torah observance is also on the rise in Israel. And people come here and can live very fulfilling Jewish lives. But nonetheless, there is that tension, and that has to be somehow navigated and resolved.
And what have you found the Israeli response has been? Are people willing to talk to you about it? Are politicians speaking about it? Is it in the public consciousness?
I'm a relatively new Israeli. So I don't know how kindly they take to my ideas, even though I write them in a public forum. But one thing I found, which might be true of all democracies today, whether in Australia or the United States or even in Israel, difficult problems tend to be pushed down the road for someone else to resolve. There's an interest in the political establishment to put a Band-Aid on certain issues and say, let someone else deal with it. Not to mix metaphors, but President Biden frequently says that Iran will not build a nuclear weapon under his watch. Well, under his watch means just another 2 years plus, but that's not a long-term basis for confidence. Every politician worries about their watch and getting reelected. So the law of return has always been, like you said in your introduction, sort of a taboo subject, that it was controversial when it was amended in 1970, and it remains controversial today because people will think, if you would just say the child of a Jewish mother, all right, people will say, well, it's being exclusive, it's being too restrictive, etc. The things that can be done, but what struck me as almost ironic is the big argument that took place, public argument in 1970 over the amendment of the law of return was over the clause giving Israeli citizenship to those who had converted, whereas omitting the phrase converted according to halakha, according to Jewish law. The whole fight was about the conversion clause, and almost no attention was paid to this grandfather clause, which allowed a person to claim Jewish status and Israeli citizenship simply based on the fact that one Jewish grandfather, or that person had one Jewish grandfather.
What's the solution? What can we do now? I mean, we've got hundreds of thousands of people that have come that don't identify as Jewish, and potentially 70, 90% of another 100,000 on their way. What realistically can we hope to do to improve the situation?
I think there are two things that can be done, and I dare say I don't know if they've tried in the past. The first thing is the intermarriage problem cuts both ways. It's not just that you have halachic Gentiles in Israel who want to marry Jews. That's one side of the problem. But the other side of the problem is there are halachic Jews in Israel who see nothing wrong with marrying a halachic Gentile. And that's a problem of education. So where has the educational system in Israel, even in the state-mandated schools, gone so soft that it's not even encouraging Jews to marry Jews? So it's not just a problem of the immigrants, it's a problem of the Israeli residents as well. The second thing is, I think we could do a better job in making the practice of Torah, the observance of mitzvot, more rewarding to people, more friendly, more open. Meaning, it bothers me that 30 years ago, all these people came from the former Soviet Union, and many came because they had been greatly restricted in their Jewish observance. They came here as Jews. Certainly their nationality documents in the Soviet Union declare them to be Jews. What is wrong in the society that they haven't seen the grandeur of Torah, that they would want to be Jews? Now, mind you, many have. There have been thousands of conversions according to halacha over the last 30 years. It's probably over 100,000 have converted. But that means you have between 300 and 400,000 who still remain non-Jews. So why aren't we attracting them? Why isn't the Torah life, as it's observed in Israel, sufficient to make everyone who came want to be a fully practicing Jew? If not everyone, I'll be realistic, 90%, 95%. And that's a failure that I think we can rectify.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It seems like the Israeli law of return these days uses the definition that the Nazis used, which to define what a Jew is. And it doesn't seem like a healthy way for people to define themselves.
No. As I wrote, Hitler is not our posek. He doesn't define questions of Jewish law. And therefore, to use his standard, as macabre and noxious as it was, as our standard for Jewishness, gives him a posthumous victory over the Torah after he murdered 6 million Jews. I don't give Hitler that authority over Jewish life in any sphere. So why would we do it in this most sensitive sphere of automatic citizenship in the land of Israel under the law of return? We want to encourage all Jews to come to Israel and live, but they want to be able to live in a Jewish state, not in a Jewish state where there's constant tussling over these essential areas of Jewish identity and practice.
Well, Rabbi, I got to say thank you for joining us and for raising this important issue. It's very important to us to get, a range of opinions, and I'm glad you're speaking about this and you're raising it, and we wish you well in this struggle.
My thanks to you for having me.